Basically, want to talk about how I got started in rental properties. Um, basically, this whole thing started when I was had gotten a job. Actually, never graduated, but I got offered a job, and by the people I was working part time for when I was an undergrad student. I actually quit school and started working full time. Don't necessarily recommend that, but that's what I did. And I remember looking at thinking in my head, as I wasn't even sure what the pay would be, like what would be the amount of pay where I would accept this job. I remember coming up with the number in my head, and then the what they actually offered me was about 10,000 a year higher, and it wasn't that much money. But I was honestly a little bit naive and ignorant of how money works in the real world, and most of the time, just so you know, if you are having your retirement, you have your insurance, you have your taxes, things like that taken out of your paycheck, the amount of your paycheck that's going to end up in your bank account will be close to 60% of what the total is. I didn't have any good resources to know that. And so um, what they actually ended up offering me was pretty close to what. It's a good thing I didn't go with the number I thought, because it ended up working out to be about uh, equivalent to what I was thinking I was going to get. And just realize, if you don't already know, most people probably do. That's like I didn't, obviously. That's the way the world works. Anyway, so I got this job, and I had money, even though it was less than I thought. It was money for like really the first time in my life, and I started buying cars, motorcycles, guns, computers, things that I cared about, and a lot of the reason was because I didn't know nothing else seems worth it. I was so willing to put my money somewhere that it would grow, but it has to grow enough to be worth it. And I did not know any way to do that. And there's like probably this entrepreneurial type of spirit. I just had no idea how to even start. Everything seemed completely unrealistic, and it just a pipe dream. If I, of course, I couldn't start my own business. How does that work? And Anyway, so I ended up that mindset started to change when I saw a friend of mine purchase a house right out of college, and I knew they didn't have. I probably had more money than them. How come they can buy a house I was renting at the time? And I knew they probably didn't put 20% down, so that alone got me thinking. And I knew this person was. I had kind of respect for this person, so whatever they did, I knew it was at least halfway legitimate. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And I wasn't actually confident, but I'm like, I'm gonna look into this because I want to be sure this is interesting to me. So I started googling, and I always assumed that you had to have 20% down to buy a house, and um, you don't. And I also thought if you could put less down, it was probably irresponsible because it takes so long to pay off the house, and you have no equity. It's probably a huge liability. Some of those things are definitely worth considering and thinking about, but there were misconceptions there. I had no idea about FHA loans and how you could put 3.5% down and get a primary residence. And I started without it was like a quick Google search started showing me this stuff, and so then I started dreaming, and I was like, 3.5% down. What's the if I was going to rent something? What is there any way I can get kind of money out of this? And sort of looking around at properties, and finding out like how big of a loan could I get, what kind of house could I afford, just crunching all those numbers and realizing that there were a couple triplexes for sale, and just looking at the as an investment, they were some of the best bang for the buck where I could spend the least amount of money for the biggest percentage gain. And so I ended up looking at a couple houses, but definitely was really interested in this one triplex, and started using Zillow actually, to um, uh, find mortgage rates and get a good estimate of how much my payment would be a month and all that stuff. I ended up contacting like six separate lenders, tried to go to my local bank. My local bank, I wasn't that young, but I was younger at the time, and probably drove up on a motorcycle and looked like a idiot young kid that doesn't know what he's doing. Came in there wanting to have a loan for a triplex, and the bank they really honestly treated me really poorly. They looked down on me. You could almost tell that they didn't want to waste their time even talking to me, which was fine. I'll go somewhere else. So yeah, I ended up having talking to a whole bunch of lenders. Like I sent out like went to like 6 separate lenders online, just started emailing them like and asking what the rates were, seeing how well they would respond to me. Ended up settling with one lender, and she was great, and ended up finding out I needed to show more than just 3.5% down. Ended up selling my motorcycle, and to get enough reserves. Reserves basically are oftentimes for a primary residence, if it's a multifamily, you might need 3 months of reserves, and reserves are basically the total amount you'd pay in your mortgage. So your mortgage including your escrow. So you have your principal, interest, your mortgage payment, your taxes, and your house insurance, stuff like that, basically. So it's basically the payments minus utilities. You don't have to worry about utilities usually. Um, and it's just a thing. I had no idea what reserves were when I. And of course, I talked to the bank, and they're like, "Yeah, you have enough money." And as we start going, they're like, "Oh, just kidding. You need all this money." And my reserves actually had to be quite a bit larger than 3.5% down the way things work. And that was a little bit frustrating, but I was like, it's worth it to me. This motorcycle, it was a Gixxer 1000, 2005, I think. 2005 Gixxer 1000. It's like, this thing's depreciating anyway. I wasn't expecting to keep it for years and years. I'm going to sell this thing. I'll put it in something that's hopefully going to appreciate in money. And so that's what I did. And um, had a lot of fiascos. I ended up selling it to my brother. The bank was like, "Oh, that's your brother. We don't trust that the money you got from that is real. Your brother's probably just gonna. You probably never gave your brother your motorcycle that money. He's probably just borrowed money." They're really picky with reserves. You basically want reserves there for 3 months before you apply for the loan, because then they won't question it. They'll think it's legitimate. And um, anyway, I learned all that. I learned stuff like that. I learned that generally there's 43% of your total income. They don't want any more than that in payments, um, counting your like credit card payments and your mortgage. You want to stay under 43%. Um, just stuff like that. Anyway, so it took some convincing. It took some, extra paperwork to be signed, saying my brother's like, yes, I really did buy this. Here's the title in my name. A bunch of stuff proving yes, I didn't. I'm not lying. And actually got to the point where the lender was like, yeah, I don't know how this is gonna work. And I was like, you know, I'm not like I can still see ways this could work. Let me call you back. Looked at stuff again, called her back, how we try this, boom, by the end it actually worked. I owned a triplex. And it was a really good feeling. And just to like see this over 3,000 square foot house that only 2 months before I didn't even know I could afford, and boom, I had it. I had renters in the bottom unit, in the top unit. I had a friend of mine that moved in with me in the middle unit. The numbers, that first mortgage payment came around, and I had rent, there, and enough to cover it. The money that was coming in was more than I was paying on the property, and things were. I was trying to, my very best going in, but I knew I was so ignorant. There was bound to be something that was going to screw me over. And the house seemed solid. It was basically what I really wanted was, I want this to be an investment. I want this to be simply a thing that has a good ROI. I don't really care if it looks cool. I don't care about anything else. And so I wanted something that's structurally sound, because I was afraid the structure, if it wasn't sound, that was going to come back to bite me. And I potentially wanted this forever. I wanted to see the income from this till I die. And But it was ugly. You needed paint, and you needed a roof. I actually got the seller to replace part of the roof, and so I ended up like working on it on my own, painting the outside and stuff. And anyway, yeah, I moved into the middle unit of a triplex, and rented out those other rooms, and um, it was totally worth it. And I think looking back, it was a very, very good decision. And um, I it wasn't that hard. Like, it took some determination, and I didn't have anyone guiding me besides my own self, and it would have been a lot easier if I did. But even with that ignorance, like, it was doable. And the thing is, um, pretty sure most other people could do that if they wanted it. And that house, which is actually the house I'm in now. I've moved a couple times since then, but I'm back. Um, uh, that house was, yeah, it was a little over 4 years ago that I bought this triplex, and it started this line. I now have 7 properties, 2 of them are mobile homes, and um, I would, yeah, I I don't know. That's how it all started. It's kind of crazy. It feels like it's been a lot longer than it has been. It's kind of amazing that things have happened so quickly. And I can tell you, I'm not brilliant. I think with practice, you get better at stuff, and so hopefully, I'm getting a lot smarter and I know more, and I'm able to make better decisions with less effort. But but I don't. There wasn't some huge advantage that I have. I didn't have money, and I didn't even have that good of resources available to me when I started. And if I can do it, I'm confident you can do it too, if you wanted to. And um, cars and motorcycles and guns are fun. Um, they have a value, and I still have a strong appeal for them. Uh, I still have cars and guns. I don't actually have a motorcycle right now. I have a dirt bike, but it was worth it. And I think growing in, like, there's something that feels good and is very satisfying about setting out to accomplish something. Maybe it's not properties, but for me, that was a very healthy thing. I think when you have some kind of delayed gratification where you are working for something hoping that is going to be worth it, and then it is, it encourages that kind of behavior. And uh, it's, I think, set me off on a good track. And I would love to use my knowledge from this. I'm not, a millionaire now, or anything. Like, there's definitely people that are more successful than me, but I'm on a in a short period of time. I would not have thought this was what I've done is possible, and I know I'm farther ahead than other people, and I would love to help other people with what I know. And anyway, that's the story of how I went from spending my money on guns and cars and motorcycles, and went and bought my first triplex, and how that started my property buying spree. And um, I have enough properties now, which, like I said, is 7. That's counting 2 mobile homes, so they're not all with land. But they're as much as I feel like I can easily manage, because I'm my own property manager right now. I don't necessarily even want more properties. I think I will be getting some more, but um, I'm getting pretty selective. Anyway, yeah, and I'm not like, this isn't. I think I have wisdom, and I think I have good things to give, but I'm not anything special at the same time. And anyway, that's my basic story. So I kind of want to talk about the other properties and how I went to get my second property and my third and my fourth and fifth, all the way. Um, and I would love to go into more detail about things to um, know when you're buying a house, things to think about. If you're buying your first property, what's some basic stuff to know. But anyway, this is just basically a story of, yeah, me buying my first property. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. If you want to hear more like this, see reviews, basic how-tos on property stuff, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.